Our third speaker is Nickie King. Nickie is a child protection lawyer with the Loddon Campaspe Community Legal Centre. She does pretty tough work. I met Nickie yesterday at the office, and she just walked in from court, and we talked about her day. And Kylie Beckhouse last night, family lawyer, talked about vicarious trauma experienced by family lawyers. And look, I was getting vicarious trauma just listening to Nickie talk about her work that day. So it's kind of third-hand kind of effect. Every day, Nickie has to deal with questions of whether a child should stay or be removed from their families. And we're talking about the most marginalised and vulnerable people you can possibly imagine, or even possibly can't imagine. And there is, of course, an intersection, as we've heard from the statistics this morning, between complex social problems, care orders, and criminal offending. So would you please make Nickie welcome?
We've heard Leanna and Claudia directly on the topic of our treatment of children in the criminal justice system, and I just want to take us a few steps back from that central topic today to look more closely at how these kids end up in the criminal justice system and that overlap that we've touched on already between care and custody. I hope in doing so I can provide some additional context and understanding about the complexity of this issue, because there are no easy answers. There are only answers that involve a significant commitment of cash and political will to fund meaningful early intervention services that can walk alongside families to build skills, connect them with services and provide therapeutic support. The children, young people and families that we meet in the Children's Court are the most vulnerable in the community. Parents frequently struggle with a range of issues, including poverty, mental health problems, drug issues, family violence, sexual and physical abuse and criminal offending. Parents involved with child protection have all too often experienced intergenerational poverty and involvement with child protection authorities themselves as children. Children living in these circumstances often have limited access to resources and services to change what can sometimes seem like a settled life trajectory. His parents were on drugs. His mum was unable to protect her children from family violence. They then became homeless. He was sexually abused. He was removed from his mother's care. His dad then went to jail, but his mum worked hard. She got him and his two siblings home for a while before he went back into the system after his mum became involved in another violent relationship. By this time, he was angry. He was in late primary school, but he wasn't really going. He cycled through a number of foster care placements, being moved on because he displayed sexualised and trauma-related behaviour, including aggression. At 13, he went to residential care, a home for up to 6 teenagers where they're supported by paid carers. He hadn't seen his family in a long time, as he'd lived in Melbourne since he was 10 and his family were in regional Victoria. One of his brothers had been sent to live with an auntie in New South Wales and the other was in another residential care facility. In frustration and distress, he damaged property at the residential care home. He threatened staff, who called the police. The situation escalated and there was more property damage. There were multiple charges. He got diversion on this occasion, but the acting out continued. He was then charged with more property offences while in resi care. He smashed a TV, he ripped a phone off the wall, before he absconded completely and started committing more violent offences, including a burglary that he committed with a mate from the residential care unit. He then went to juvenile detention. This story may sound extreme, but it's not an exaggerated example. Last year, Victoria Legal Aid published a report called Care, Not Custody, in which they reviewed their child protection client data statewide, finding that almost 1 in 3 young people that are assisted with child protection matters who are placed in out-of-home care were later charged with criminal offences. Young people placed in out-of-home care are almost twice as likely to face criminal charges as those who remain with their families. And young people in out-of-home care are more likely than other children to be charged with criminal damage for property-related offences. So there's a big link between being in out-of-home care and criminality, sometimes called the care-to-crime pathway. Kids in residential care particularly feature prominently in our juvenile detention facilities, and we've heard Leanna tell us that 2/3 of all children in Victoria's youth detention centres have come from the child protection system. Given these clear links, we must examine the system and families from which these children have come. There are a number of issues for children and young people in residential care which have received some media coverage over the last 2 or so years, including particularly the inadequate matching of children from different ages, experiences and backgrounds together, poorly supported and casual staff with limited training, and a willingness of staff to call police to manage behavioural issues amongst young people. These factors contribute to young people's offending while in state care. The Victorian Government has responded to some of these concerns by introducing reforms to the residential care system, including plans to reduce the number of young people placed in residential care, using resi care as a short-term therapeutic option, and making sure residential care staff are adequately qualified and trained. These moves seem positive. However, they also must be coupled with guidelines about managing challenging behaviour from young people, so as to, where possible, avoid contact with police and the criminal justice system. But just reforming residential care is not enough. We see the issues that can lead to criminality and social dysfunction forming earlier, with a real lack of early intervention services for parents to build good parenting skills in an intensive manner and outside of an assessment and investigation setting. Our services acted for many mothers who have their children removed shortly after birth as a result of protective concerns, including drug and alcohol abuse, poor mental health, and in the case of more than 3/4 of the women we act for, family violence. If these parents are not from families or communities who can provide any level of support, they will be wholly reliant on professional services to get on board quickly and assist them to address the protective concerns. In regional areas particularly, there are lengthy waits to get into detox and rehab. Without children in their care, these mothers are often ineligible for the support of a family services worker. And if skills development is an issue, what will be offered is a 10-day residential assessment and skills development program. In Bendigo at the moment, we're waiting 3 months to access the only service that provides this program. There are no programs that I am aware in our region that can build parenting skills and simply model appropriate parenting behaviour during contact visits. There's a critical shortage of services in this area, particularly services tailored for parents who may have a disability, as do nearly 40% of our child protection clients. So what do? Once children enter our child protection system, we've got an obligation to provide care and support like a good parent would. This support shouldn't end when these kids become teenagers, have problems, act out, commit offences, or reach the age of 18. Thank you.